What's up, everybody? Jay Miller here, bringing another Productivity in Tech podcast. This week, we're going to be doing it similar to how we did last week. I really like that format where we just had a conversation going. My guest this week is Ronnie Lutes. Ronnie is a great friend of mine and someone that I talk with on a regular basis. And one of the things about Ronnie is he has always been tech adjacent, but never working in tech, but always working around it and utilizing it in ways that are very unique and quite fascinating. So one of the things that I really wanted to do is look how he was able to get things done around the tech space and what it meant to him interacting with a lot of people who are very tech savvy, but not necessarily having to be as savvy for employment or things like that. So here's my conversation. Of course, it is always a conversation first and foremost, so we're going to talk about a bunch of different things, but here it is, my conversation with Ronnie Lutes. I am glad to be chatting with you again, though. By the way, we're just gonna chat. Like it's no crazy topics. I mean, I might ask a little bit more about like what you do and stuff like that, but all in all, it's a fun conversation. I'm starting to do more of those because honestly, trying to come annoying at times.
It is, yeah. I mean, unless that's like something you enjoy doing, like you write for a newspaper or something.
Yeah, I'm not a journalist for a reason.
I did that in high school, or in college, actually.
Really? I could never... I don't know, like, I've had people say that I ask good questions, but at the same time, I feel like I just ask questions that I feel like other people might have, and I was listening to the roundtable, and they were talking about Larry King and David Letterman, and they were talking about how they were able to ask questions that no one else would think of. And the questions were never scripted. They just had that much trust. And when I saw David Letterman interview Barack Obama on My Guest Needs No Introduction, I kind of saw that. I saw that feeling of there were a ton of questions that I would have had and that I did have, but none of those questions were asked, but then the questions that were asked were just kind of like, oh, that's actually a really good question.
Yeah, I didn't even see that. That's on Netflix?
Yeah, and I think it's still on there. I know he interviews, I think it's like 5 or 6 episodes where he just interviews people. And it's that whole conversation of like, hey, I'm out of the game, you're pretty much out of the game, like let's be two cronies talking about what we used to do, you know. And I think that's a cool concept. It's one of those things that maybe in 20 years when I'm probably no longer podcasting, or who knows, maybe I will be, I'll be able to call Ronnie up and be like, hey man, you remember when you used to do, what was it? It wasn't Bubble Sort. It was,
I did do some Bubble Sort, but Pocket Size Podcast.
Yeah, some PSP, and it's great to talk about some of those things.
Yeah, well, when you're 20 years old, 20 years from now, you'll be about as old as I am now, so you'll still be podcasting.
No, you're not that old.
I'm 45.
Yeah, no, I'll be 30 this year, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Granted, a lot of people do think that I'm younger than I am, but I mean, and I am actually younger than what some other people think. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird being in that middle ground because I mean, I served 5 years in the military. I've worked at the company that I've worked at now for another 5, going on 6 years, and I've been podcasting for 4 of those. And you do start to feel like not a veteran in the game, but like you're starting to feel like you can't get away with the stuff that you used to be able to get away with.
I still get away with it because I'm just not very bright. So I just use that as my excuse.
Well, I mean, if you tell everybody about it, they won't let you get away with it anymore.
I don't do enough podcasts, so it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, that is true. So yeah, I mean, let's talk about that a little bit. You were doing PSP and PSP is pocket sized podcast. It's not some new street drug that's out there. Um,
Yeah.
you were doing this podcast for a hot minute, and then I met you, and then you had stopped doing it at that time. You were doing something with home screens where you were like showing off your home screens, and we might talk about that later. But then you brought Pocket Size Podcast back. It was back for a bit, and then it disappeared again. Is there going to be a third return?
I don't think so. So Scott Wilsey did Pocket Size Podcast, and he had done it with a couple other hosts prior, and then I started doing it. I don't know. I think I did probably 30 or 40 episodes, and my life is way hectic. And as you know, because we've been kind of trying to do this for probably a year, and finally we got the time. But just our schedules just never worked out, and so we decided to stop doing it. But then I kind of got the desire to do it again, and so did Scott. So we kind of resurrected it, and I don't know. I think we probably did 10 or 20 more episodes of it, and then the same thing happened. It just got too crazy, and it's not something that I want to spend time away from my family doing, because it doesn't. I mean, I find value in it. I enjoy doing it. That's why I do it, but it doesn't necessarily do anything for the family, right? Like, I'm not getting anything out of it other than personal joy, which doesn't solve any other issues. So we kind of decided that I would stop, and he got another co-host, Andy Nicolaides, for a while, and it was good. And then the last episode, I don't know, it's actually still out there, I think, but the last episode was kind of fun. We did a Doctor Who where he had every host, every co-host from all the years in one episode. It was pretty good. But so and then I did some Bubble Sort TV with Vic Hudson, and then since then I've just decided I wasn't going to do anymore. But tonight I'm making a return appearance.
There you go. I love it. And one of the things that, like, I didn't do Pit for like 7 months. I mean, I was definitely in need of a break. I was trying to figure out this whole business thing, and even just figuring out the business thing took another like 5 or 6 months by itself. And I think that is something that a lot of people who listen to podcasts don't get. Like, there are two different types of podcasters. There are the people who wake up in the morning, go to their day job, and then come home and then just have a conversation with a good friend of theirs. And that tends to be the people that I like to bring on to the show and talk to. But then you also have the people that wake up in the morning, and when they go to their day job, it is doing that podcast. And then they pass it over to an editor. They got a producer that, they swap stories with, drink coffee. That producer gets all the stuff done. And then you have this, Gimlet Media, NPR, This American Life kind of podcast that is making a ton of money. But the problem is a ton of people are getting paid off of that ton of money that they're making in order to continue doing that show. And a lot of the podcasts that I listen to are kind of that in between, where you have maybe a network that is doing all of that back end stuff, but allowing you to kind of just jump in, record a podcast, be done with it, and then just go, okay, hey, here's my audio, have fun. And the people that I really enjoyed talking to are kind of like you and Clay Russell, Clay Russell, and the people that are like, I'm going to record this podcast, and then I'm going to need you to give me a couple days to edit it so I can, put it out on my feed. And if something goes wrong, I can't yell at an editor. I can't yell at a producer. I've just got to suck it up and fix it myself and then try to put it back out.
Right. Yeah. And that Scott did all the funny thing is Scott did all the work, right? I literally got on the computer, and we didn't do a lot of research, like ATP with John Syracuse. We just talked, and I just sent him my file when I was done, and that was it. And I would wait for it to show up in the feed, and I would listen to it, and I would hate my voice, and then we would do another one, and life went on, and I never had to do anything. But it's still, there wasn't enough time for me to even do that, which is kind of sad.
It's been funny. Like I've stopped listening to the Pit podcast because by the time I've edited it, you know, I've gone through it, I've edited it, I've cleaned it up, I've made sure everything, lined up right. I've added intros and outros. Like I've heard that conversation 2 or 3 times, and now when it goes live, I basically play like the first 5 minutes, make sure that nothing obvious happened. Like I think we had one week where for some reason my audio went over, but like when I was editing, I tapped the mute button and my guest's audio was muted the entire show. And I had to like sit there for like, I think it was like 3 or 4 hours. Like I literally pulled the episode down. So people were like tweeting me saying, "Hey, I can't get the episode," or "Hey, I got the episode, but I can only hear you." And I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna re-upload it tonight when I get home. But hey, those are the breaks, and I think that's the thing that people, like I said, people just don't realize that even the people that record and then hit done and send it, there's still so much to do. There's promoting it there. If you're getting advertisers, there's that. There's this whole Patreon thing that was starting like right when I got into podcasting. And to me, that was like an anxiety driven nightmare. Like, oh, great. People are now paying me to do something. Therefore, I have to give them something back in return. And it was this weird thing of like, I don't know if I'm qualified to do this. And that's something that I've always enjoyed talking to you about, because for you, you've always took it from the position of like, I'm not a developer, I'm not a techie person. Like I have a job, I love the equipment that I use to get my job done, and that's kind of it. And I really like making my home screen look nice.
I do. I don't know what happened with that, because that's kind of just my OCD. I don't really have it in the rest of my life. I'm not like fanatical about a clean house or clean job. My office at work is not nice, but my home screen, of course, obviously it's just my opinion, but I think it's one of the best looking home screens I have. I have done a couple of podcasts, and I did get on a 5x5 episode not with Dan Benjamin. It was actually with Blenderhead, but he had an episode. He had a show on 5x5 for a little while, and I got interviewed by him about my home screen. So yeah, it's just one of those things. I'm a freak about that, but nothing else in my life parallels. So it's kind of interesting in that manner.
Well, I mean, for people that don't know you, like explain what you do, because like I said, I know you're not in the tech space. You're really more on the management side of things, and it's really not even tech centric.
Not at all. No, I'm actually a retail manager. I've worked in retail for pretty much my whole life, but I've been with the same company for 21 years. So I'm a store manager for a grocery store chain. That's what I do, and I've been in retail management for I think 19 of those 21 years. So it's kind of all I've ever done. But in that regard, I mean, you have to, as tech moved along. Originally I used what was it? The Franklin Covey system. The huge notebooks and whatever. The
Yeah.
whatever those things were called. They were huge, and they cost like $80 a year just to get the inserts in them.
Like a Filofax or
no, it was the Franklin Covey. The seven is the same people that did the seven. The seven. Whatever. Yeah, this is why I should do the research. So Franklin Covey had a planner that you could buy. They had a couple different sizes. They had a small one and a large one, and this was before PDAs or anything like that. And it would have all your calendar in it, and you could have your to-do list, and you could write it in there. And then it would cost you like $80 a year to buy all the month inserts and all that kind of stuff. But then when Palm came out with Palm OS, I switched to that and got into their to-do system and really enjoyed that, and pretty much worked on that until iOS came out, and then started doing it that way. So tech drives my job, right? Like everything we do at work is about tech. We have tons of different apps that we can use, and now I can use my phone to scan items in the store and do every single thing that I could do on a computer. I can do right off my phone, and I have to be uber organized based on the fact that, my store employs 80 people now, but I have had stores that have employed up to 180, and you have to figure out how to coordinate that. And it's not something you do by the seat of your pants. Let me tell you that. You have to be very organized. So to-do list, task management, that kind of stuff is all the things I do every day. But I also love tech, so I did it. The Pocket Size Podcast was a tech podcast, not from the developer side of it, more from the apps that I use and that kind of stuff. So it's yeah, I intersect with tech, but I don't understand anything about how to make any of that stuff.
But yet all of your friends are like app developers and like all of these people that have like tech blogs and all this stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. And actually, I don't understand a lot of stuff. Like we were talking about Vic Hudson, who does the Bubble Sort TV. He's also an iOS developer. He's had a couple of apps on the App Store. And him and Scott will talk about stuff, and we have some, group chats. And I'm like, I don't understand anything that you're talking about. But yeah, most of my friends online would be surprised. I mean, they know me because, I actually have a ton of friends from online, and but it's weird because the things that I talk about, they assume that I'm automatically in tech or in the, into that industry of some sort. And then when I tell them I run a grocery store, they're like, wow, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
But I think that's something that the internet has given us the ability to do, because I don't ever think of you as Ronnie, the grocery store manager. I never thought of you as Ronnie, the tech person. I always thought of you as, Ronnie, the home screen king. And for me, that, like, I don't know what people think of me, but I've had people literally call me Mr. Productivity in Tech, and I was just like, "What?" like, no, that's my dad. I don't know. I don't know what to say to that when people are like, "Oh yeah, Jay, he's a podcaster," and it's like, well, actually, I'm like a audio editor, video editor / entrepreneur / content creator / all these other slashes, but marketer. But people see me as this one thing, and I never know what to tell them, because I'm a productivity coach as well, and people are just like, oh, well, can you coach me? And I'm like, no, I can't, because you're not a developer. So I don't know what problems you're running into, because I've never lived that life. But, at the same time, I've had developers go, oh, well, you're not an iOS developer, so what can you teach me? And it's like, okay, now I got to go down that road too.
Well, but there's certain things that no matter what job you do, you have to have certain skill sets just to be able to run a business or anything like that. And it doesn't make any difference whether or not you've done the thing that they've done. If you have been successful at teaching people how to become better at what they do, then you could do that, right? I mean, I'm certain that although I have no skills in development, I could help someone understand how to become a better whatever they want to be, based on the fact that I've taken hundreds of leadership classes and led, huge teams for 20 years. I'm not going to tell you how to code in Swift, because that's just not going to happen. But there's a lot of other stuff that goes into becoming a better you that doesn't really have anything to do with whether you're good at your job,
Definitely. And speaking of that, let's talk a little bit more about you, because you mentioned being so task oriented, like project management oriented when it came to work. Like, what does your system look like? Not from I use app X, Y, and Z, but like how are you managing email? How are you managing people? How are you managing, family and life things?
And that's a big topic. Well, we'll just start with email, because in fact, I might be changing some stuff here in the near future, because my work has always been, my email has always only been able to use, I've only been able to use iOS Mail, Apple Mail. And finally, they just opened it up to Outlook, which is kind of interesting, because Microsoft To Do allows you to do some flagging of emails, and it automatically goes in there. But my system currently is, I send the email to my task management app of choice, and I am going to pimp it just a little bit, because I've been using it for like 6 years. So it's the app that I don't necessarily plan on changing, but due to some work things, I might. But anyway, I use TickTick, and it is one of the most robust apps because it will allow you to, so like you can just email it in and you can say whatever the email's name is, the subject line becomes the task, and you can actually use natural language parsing in there. So you could, if it's an email you want to react to, tomorrow at 8 a.m., you just put in there, tomorrow at 8 a.m., and it'll give you a reminder the next day at 8 a.m. So I focus on that. I have some shared tasks with my managers, my assistant managers, so that I can put in there what I want them to do, and then they can check it off, and then I can follow up with them to ensure that they're doing their job, right? So I don't just have my own tasks in there. I have theirs in there too, which sometimes bothers me because I have kind of a desire to complete everything. And if they don't complete it in time, it kind of makes me angry. So I have to figure out a way to get around that. I don't know what that answer is.
Yeah, I mean, it's so dumb that there are so many apps out there that always do like 3 things really well, but then suck at all the other stuff. And I think that's the thing that, I've played around with so many apps. I've looked, I mean, we have these conversations about every month, and it's like, oh, hey, yeah, looking at this app, or, oh, hey, doing some media stuff for this company. And we've as long as I've known you, I've been trying to get you not off of TickTick, but I've been trying to understand. Like, I feel like in a way, like, you're Morpheus and I'm Neo, and like one day I'm just going to look at it, and then all of a sudden it's just going to unveil into a bunch of ones and zeros, and I'm going to like look at the bullet and it's going to make sense to me. And he's just like, oh, he's getting it. He's understanding the matrix now. And like that has been, cause I mean, I've tried it. I've tried TickTick. I've tried like every freaking to-do list out there, but there's always just like this thing that they just can't do, and I don't even know how to explain it. It's that what's that word? It's a German word that has like no English translation for it.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't think of it right now.
Yeah, like that's how it feels. And I mean, email is like one of those other things, because like I maintain inbox zero, but I do that in this weird way of that I just don't get mail. Like, I don't know, I don't know what it is. Like, I get other people's mail more than I get mail for myself. And I mean, I'll pimp out Superhuman, because I mean, it's an expensive app, and I get ticked off at how expensive it is at times. But I will say that, like, except for Newton, I haven't had an app that just felt more fluid. And the fact that I can say, okay, if it comes from this person, just put it in this whole separate inbox that I only put these emails in that are this, that do this other thing, like that by itself, like eliminated every other email that I get. So now when I get something, it's like, I know I have to look at it because it's not the thing that I'm expecting.
Yeah.
And again, I just don't know how I got lucky, but like I might get 3 or 4 emails a day, and it takes me less than 5 seconds to just, select all, delete. Cool. All right, we're good. and then
Nice.
Just be done with it. But
I get probably 20 or 30 a day, maybe 40. I don't know. I don't get anything in my personal email, but my work email, I get a ton.
And even in my work email, like I might get like 5 things, and I just, maybe it's because I just don't answer back. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, someone will message me like, hey, this da-da-da-da needs to get done. And like, I'll send them an email back later that just says like, I literally have it like in text expander. So I literally just type, I hope no one from the office is listening, but I'll type in like GFY, and I'm sure you know what that means. And then Nice. He goes, this has been completed. If you have any questions, let me know. Have a nice day. And then my signature.
Nice. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and if it's on a Friday, it'll say have a great weekend too. And I wanted to make sure they were, very time oriented.
So they never say, "Hey, this is the same thing you've sent like 37 times."
No, I mean, and again, that's the thing is it's always the same thing, but at the same time, no one ever calls me out on it. No one asks any questions, and I just don't, like my bosses even said like, hey, did you get that email? And I was like, oh, I haven't checked my email yet. And he's like, but it's like 10 o'clock, and I'm like, oh, I mean, it's not going anywhere. Like,
I have with my email. I don't do inbox zero. Actually, I don't really care too much about that, but I do try to, if I open it, I try to give it a home so that if it needs to go to TickTick, it needs to be forwarded there, and then it has a time, and then I'll do it at that time. Because if it's not pressing, I don't want to do it at that time. If it's something that I can do right away, I do it right away and get it over with. But I don't ever want to look at an email twice. Unless it goes to TickTick, and then later when it comes up, I'll do it then. But I don't ever want to have to scroll through the back of my back catalog of emails and look at them again. So once I check it, it either gets done or it goes to my task management system to be done at a later day when it's supposed to be done.
but you mentioned that that's actually something that I do that I think a lot of other quote unquote productivity gurus would hate is I'm all about that snooze button. Like if I've got so I have 3 podcast interviews this week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I only know about that because the Calendly invites that I get, whenever they submit their times, I always snooze to the Sunday before. So, and then again, they all go into that special folder. So when I can go, oh, hey, let me look and see what, podcast interviews I have this week whenever I'm, telling my wife my schedule, letting her know what's going on. It's like they're all right there and they're all sitting there. Now, once they've already happened, I just delete it. And I know I could put all that in my calendar, but it's already in there. I just don't open my calendar either. So, I mean, I'm all kinds of jacked up, I guess. I mean, my thing is with my calendar, I get the notification when it's about to happen. Like, I know if something's going to happen because I get the notification and it's fine. Like, oh, hey, I've got a podcast interview in 15 minutes. I already knew about that because I planned my week out. So
Right.
I don't have to sit there in my calendar for 30 days because I can just literally open up one inbox and have everything that I have going on.
I never look at my calendar either. I mean, I know, if I get an invite to something and I know I have a conference call, I have a conference call. And when it notifies me, I go take my conference call. Right. So yeah, I don't ever look at my calendar. I hate looking at calendars actually.
But yeah, I think that's one of the issues with this whole productivity game, this whole productivity porn like obsession that people have had in the last like 5-10 years, where it's almost a second job just trying to be organized. And I get that. As someone who clinically has ADHD, clinically has anxiety issues, like I do get stressed out when I don't know what's going on. But I don't need an entire system. I don't need to spend 5 hours just trying to figure out what I'm going to do today. Like, it doesn't make sense to me how people OmniFocus is probably the biggest culprit of this. Such a powerful app. I have it. I put checklists in it. That way I know, like, if I'm doing a process, if I'm editing some video, I can just go to that checklist, make a copy of it, and then just be like, did I do this? Yes. Did I do this? Yes. Did I do this? Yes. Cool. Awesome. But at the same time, I can't be like, okay, let me jump into perspective, alpha, delta, and then, oh, it's a Tuesday and I'm at the aquarium, so this shopping list pops up. And like, it's so ridiculous how these apps have just grown in complexity as people feel like they have to itemize their entire life.
Yeah, I can't do that either. In fact, I use TickTick, but I don't have like 8 million different things in there. I really only want the reminders of stuff that's very important to me. And I own OmniFocus as well, and I could not use that app. There's no way. It's way too complicated. And like you said, I mean, if you spend more time setting it up and doing all the stuff that's in it, what's the point of having the app, right? I personally feel like the app needs to get out of your way so that you can get the stuff done that you need to get done, as opposed to spending, hours and hours setting it up. And that's one reason why I've used the same app for so long. And although during that period, I have tried things and OmniFocus and some other stuff, but I never really get rid of TickTick. I'll just have it there and I'll throw another app in there and Sorted. I tried Sorted for a little while. And while they're all good, the amount of time it takes to set it up and to get it the way you want it, I already have a thing set up the way I want. Why don't I just continue to use it? Now, sometimes I think it's too complicated. I was talking earlier about Palm OS, and the To-Do app on Palm OS was just awesome. It's very simple, worked very well, and sometimes I wish I could go back to that, but the world is not the same way. Like it would not accept an email, right? I don't know if I need that or not. Like I don't know. Do I need that? I use it frequently, but is it something that's important? And that's the other thing with to-do task management apps, like you're talking about OmniFocus. You get so caught up in all these different things it can do, but do you really need it to do all those things? I don't even know.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that was the thing that got me away from using stuff like Todoist is it became this game of like, maybe I'll be more productive if I'm microtasking. So instead of just saying, hey, go take out the trash, it'll say, hey, walk into the kitchen, take the trash bag out of the trash can, carry the trash, tie it in a knot, carry it outside the door, put it in the dumpster, come back in, put a new bag in, put some baking powder in there to make sure it smells nice. And it's like, all of a sudden I'm checking and I'm looking at those karma points and it's like, oh, you've completed 15 tasks. But then when I look at it, it's like, yeah, I completed 15 tasks, but I don't feel like I did anything.
Right.
And that's, since I've kind of gone to like this, I keep my notebook on me. Each day I write down the date and then I just put a list of stuff that needs to happen. And then if it's something that's an ongoing project, I will say my notebook system is a little complicated because I have, it's two notebooks inside of one notebook, if that makes sense. Because it's like the leather bound thing, and then I got two notebook inserts in there. And my daily stuff goes in the front one, projects go in the back one. They both have their own table of contents, and that's the thing. During the day, it's like, today is a 20 whatever. I got to do this, and this, and then I check it off. And then the next day, it's like, all right, I had to do these things. This didn't get done. Move that over. And then, oh, hey, I'm working on this project, so let me open up the other book. Oh, this project, got to do this, and this. All right, I'm on here. This has got to get done. All right, that's done. Cool, awesome. And it sucks because, yeah, I don't get the event-based notifications. I don't get the automatically sync to email. But at the same time, I also don't feel like I'm spending 3 hours trying to organize myself.
Right. And I think any of those things can work. I mean, there were people that used pen and paper for however many years they used them before an electronic device came around. So obviously it works. It's just what you think you need. I really like the notifications because I set it and forget it. I don't open it unless a notification comes up and tells me that I have something that needs to be done. I'm not spending all day in the app. And I think and when I had a Franklin Covey planner and I had the notebooks like you did, I did spend a lot of time looking at it because I'm so forgetful that if I didn't open it a million times, I would forget something that would happen, So I personally could never do that, but I'm happy it works for you. I'm happy that whoever does it, I'm happy it works for them, but I could.
But at the same time, like I can't say with 100% certainty that it does work for me. Cause I mean, and I think that's the tough part. Cause I get it when people are like, oh yeah, but what if you have that thing that you need to think about in like 6 months? I don't know. I'm trying to, keep up with tomorrow, let alone 6 months from now. I will tell people like, hey, can you just remind me of this? I put it back on them.
That's what I was going to say. If it's that important, somebody will tell you about it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like my boss knows. Like, don't ask me about something you asked me about 3 months ago. Obviously, it wasn't that important to me because it would have been done. And like, if you're asking about it, that means it's probably not done. And just tell me you want it done. And like, hey, this is important now. Let's knock this out. All right, cool, good to go. Let's get on it. Because no one has time anymore. Like, I don't know what happened to time, but it feels like it has disappeared. Everybody wants your attention. Everybody's vying for your attention. And like giving up like social media for the most part has been easy, mostly because I don't have time to deal with it. Like people don't realize like, oh hey, how come I'm only tweeting like 2 or 3 things a week now, and they're all like the same stuff. Like, hey, I do audio editing. If you're looking for an editor, hit me up. Do you realize every content that every client that I get literally takes a tweet away from me? Like I can't focus on doing that anymore because I'm busy working.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where time went because it seemed like it used to be, well, it got connected. That's what happened. So now people have the ability to occupy your time, whereas before email, there was no way that they could get a hold of you so quickly. They would have to give you a phone call or whatever, and that's not as effective. So yeah, it's the whole digital world it's a little bit of a problem, especially for us older folks that didn't grow up with it. So I think the next generation maybe will be a little better at it because their whole life they've been in it. Where when I was a kid in the '70s, there was none of it. So I have my learning curve is a lot greater than someone like my daughter who's 15, who since the day she was born, she has been inundated with electronics. I don't know if socially as human beings we're prepared for that, but they're definitely more prepared for it at their age than I am at my age.
Yeah, one of the things I was watching, I watch like a ton of YouTube videos late at night and stuff, and it's like there was a video on Wisecrack about idiocracy and whether or not it's actually happening, and they said, funny enough, SAT scores and like IQ test scores are going up, not down. So people are getting smarter, well, book smarter,
Right.
but it's also bringing about its own problems. And I don't know, like, I'm guessing that productivity has just become one of those problems, is that people now know how unproductive they are. And I think like this rise of like, oh, robots are going to take your job, blah, blah, all that stuff is like, oh crap, now I actually have to be more productive. People are used to the status quo, but then when you are constantly being threatened out of a job, due to something that can outpace you, now you're like, oh, well, crap, I got to make sure that I can get stuff done faster. Where, I don't fully believe that that's going to be the case, but I also think that we think about how much we can get done more than we think about whether or not we should actually be doing it. and that's something that I have to be hopped up on medication before I remember that sometimes. I'll be sitting there having a panic attack like, oh, I gotta do da 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 da, and then 20 minutes later I'm just like, you know what, it's probably not even that important, I'm just gonna
I'll just push it off till tomorrow. It'll still be there tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean and that's the thing, is we've gotten into this habit of like of trying to fill an 8-hour work week when we don't need to, or an 8-hour work day when we don't need to. I'd love an 8-hour work week.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah,
I think it's in my situation, I think it's because there's so much sent to us. Like there's just literally you're bombarded every day. And I think everyone understands that there's no way to get done all of that. So stuff falls through the crack and people don't even care anymore because they know, they understand. I just got sent 40 emails. There's no way I can react to 40 emails. I just can't do it.
Right.
I understand stuff's going to fall through the crack and it just happens. And I don't know how to solve that unless there's a way to somehow not get so many emails. But it doesn't matter however many bosses you have. That's how many people find something that's very important to them. And all of those people want to make that important to you. And by the time it gets to you, you now have to find all these things important, and there's no way to juggle all of those things. It's almost impossible.
What if they made it so that you had to set a limit on how many emails you could send a day? Like you were only allowed to send 5 emails a day.
I think that'd be great.
I think that would be
And
awesome.
we have a person that's over like our e-commerce section, and then a person that's over operations. So the person that's over operations is kind of would be above the e-commerce person, and they told that person, they said, you can send one email a day. That's it. Do not send, because this person was like bombarding everybody, right? And
Oh
then
man.
you just really, I mean, it becomes a flood, and anytime you get that much stuff, there's no way you can deal with it all. So, and most of it wasn't important anyway, but you still had to take the time to read it. So it blocked your productivity by having to read the email that at the end of it, you were just going to delete anyway. So he has now been told that he can send one email a day, and he's been doing well with that. So he just, gets all of it together and only sends out what's important. And luckily, he's not decided, oh, well, now I'm just going to send a 40-page email, right? I'm just going to copy and paste all the other emails I had into one
There you
email.
go. Here's today's debrief. Send to everyone.
Right. And I don't think anyone has figured out how that works. Email and the ability to get the job done. I don't think anyone's figured that out. I don't know if we will.
Well, I think we have to. Like that's the problem, is we're going to get to a point where so much stuff is happening, and the stuff that, like you said, stuff will fall through the cracks and people just kind of understand. And it's that idea of, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. But one of these days, the thing that is actually a priority is going to start falling through the cracks, and it's going to hit on a global scale. Like I think about, there was an instance where Amazon, like, they were doing some testing, and someone either flipped the wrong switch or forgot to set something, and it took down, the western part of the internet.
Yeah.
And you have these CDNs that get hit with stuff, and like, there's so many times where an outage is because of user error or something like that. And I've had that happen to me. I've gone and, trying to fix something, mess something up even more. And I think that it'll eventually happen to where that's going to hit somebody, and it's going to have such a drastic impact that someone's finally going to say, you know what, it's just not that serious. Like, let's stop what we're doing and focus on this thing. And I think that there have been companies that have done that have truly turned around, like, everything that they've done. Honestly, I would say I did that with Pitt. Like, doing all this stuff in podcasting land. Like, I remember, you remember I think Vic was the one that started it, but the tweets, like, everybody used to tweet out what podcast they listen to. I think Scott still does it. Like, yeah. He'll tweet out every 30 seconds he's listening to a new podcast. That guy listens to more podcasts than I do, and I'm subscribed to like 170 of them. So I don't know how he's doing it, but
170.
No, I think that might be a gross understatement, actually.
Wow.
I am currently. Oh nope, I was close. 163.
Whoa.
So
that's a lot.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is I don't listen to all of them. Some of them probably haven't put out an episode in 2 or 3 years. It's not hurting anything just sitting in there. Like, pruning my podcast subscriptions does not need to go on my to-do list.
Right, that would take a while.
Yeah, and if it did, like, I mean, those people that like they unfollow everybody, and I've done that before too. And it's like we feel like, oh, okay, I just got to prune everything, and it's like, how about I just don't let it get to that point to begin with?
Right, and pruning is not you're gonna find another way to, occupy your time.
Well, and I mean, if you think about the actual act of pruning, like, you're literally clipping a bud off of a plant so that it doesn't require that water, so it can grow more. like I'm taking things away to make room for more things to come in. And that's not necessarily the idea. The idea should be, let me take things away and then prevent them from ever coming back.
Right. Although, and kind of something I did on Twitter, which wasn't pruning, but it kind of is, I went through and turned off everyone's ability to retweet. I don't know if it was actually Marco Arman on ATP one time. He didn't actually suggest doing it. What he suggested was maybe they shouldn't have retweets, because he was, Yeah, I think he was talking about Instagram, how, you can't repost something on Instagram, or maybe you can, but it's complicated. You just can't do it easily
You
anyway.
got to screenshot it, crop it, and
Right.
repost it again.
It's kind of a pain. So he said, what if Twitter didn't have that? And I thought, well, you know what? I'm just going to try it. And I went through, and it sucks because you got a lot of people and there's no blanket turn off retweets. So you got to do it individually. But over the course of however long it took me, I've enjoyed it because because the thing about retweeting to me is most people just do it. Well, there's a couple reasons why someone may do it. Someone may want to, uh, they probably really want to say something, but they don't want to have the responsibility. So they retweet it. So it's coming from someone else's mouth. So it doesn't look like they said it, in which case I don't really want to hear that, because if they want to say it, they can say it themselves. Sometimes it is just, just to bring attention to something, and a lot of times people will do it because they have a big fan base, and it will now allow all the rest of their fans to pile on, right? So just turning that off has been amazing, because the only thing I ever see now is something that you want to say. So if you want to quote tweet something, that I see, because then you've added your own opinion to it, but just a retweet I never see. And I was talking to Scott about this the other day. He thinks it's crazy to turn it off, but I'm telling you, your your timeline becomes only what people actually are willing to say. You don't have them saying, or you don't have them retweeting crazy stuff that they wouldn't really say. And so anyway, it was just an interesting thing to me, because it's worked out well. Doesn't mean that I don't spend as much time on Twitter. I do, but now I just don't see all the junk that people are willing to retweet, because people retweet anything.
You know what's funny is things that I view on Twitter nowadays are all bots, but they're bots that I enjoy. Like, what's a good one? Effing birds is a really good one. Hold on, my baby monitor's freaking. All right.
It'll be fine.
She's in the next room. I can hear her if she starts crying. And my wife's home too, so she can hear her too. But yeah, effing birds, bodega cats is a good one. There's in otter news, just like pictures of otters. Like, I don't know, like this is the stuff that I follow on Twitter now, just because I don't have time to. I don't care what's going on in Apple. I'm going to hear about it on a podcast in 20 minutes. And then, I don't really care what people's opinions are about stuff anymore. It sucks to say that, but it really is just the case of if I want to know what you're thinking about something, I will go on Twitter and send you a DM, or I'll hit you up on iMessage, or I'll hit you up in Slack, where I know how to reach out to the person that I'm looking for to get their opinion on something. I don't necessarily want to have to hear it every 5 seconds.
Right. I follow a lot of some Vegas Golden Knights people, just some other. I don't really follow a lot of tech people, because I listen to a couple podcasts and I get everything I want to hear out of there as well. But I do have a lot of friends that I follow and talk to. But since I don't see any of their retweets, I see only what they want to say. I'm okay with it. It works well for me. But Twitter is one of those things that everybody changes. A lot of people change all the time. They're like, oh, I need to do this. I need to do that. There's just a million things that they try to do. And at the end of the day, they're just wasting more time. They're like, I need to do this so I don't waste so much time. Well, the amount of time they're spending doing it, they're wasting as well. So,
well, speaking of wasting time, we still got an after show to get to. So I'm going to ask one last question, and then we'll jump into the after show. And then after that, I'm going to probably go to sleep. Jeez, it's 9:00 now.
Right,
so my question for you is, if there won't be a new PSP, what's the next thing for Ronnie Lutes?
if I had any, you're talking about podcasting?
Anything.
Well, if it were podcasting, I would do a history podcast. That's what I would love to do. I was a history major in college, and I love history. However many podcasts I have, 95% of them are things like the history of Egypt, the history of Rome, the history of Greece, the history of ancient Greece, the history of the ancient world, stuff that everyone else eyes roll in the back of their head and they fall asleep 2 seconds after it starts. But for me, it's what I enjoy listening to. So that's what I would love to do if I ever did that.
Well, what's stopping you?
Time.
Just like time to record it, or?
Well, I think with a history podcast, you got to do a lot of research. It was easy with PSP because I could literally just jump on and do it, but
yeah.
I can't remember all the stuff that would be required for a history podcast. So, and I wouldn't want to do it halfway, right? I would want to do it, I'd want to spend the time researching it and understanding it. Like, maybe not like a Dan Carlin hardcore history because he's over the top, but maybe something a little smaller. I don't know if you listen to Dan Carlin, but his episodes are like 6 hours long. Sometimes they're outrageous. I wouldn't want to do that, but something to where at the end of it, the person's not like, well, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, So, but anyway, that's for me in podcasting. History would be what I would want to do.
So if it's not podcasting, what's it going to be? You just hanging out, doing your thing?
I don't know. My wife's going to college to be a pharmacist, so whenever she gets done, then I'm just going to retire and
there you go.
then I'll do a podcast. No, I don't know. I don't really. I mean, we have a couple of kids and we do things together, but I don't have a necessarily something that I want to do that I don't get to do, other than I would love to spend more time podcasting because I really do actually enjoy it. I just don't get to do it.
Yeah, and I get that, and that's something that it's funny because I do so many podcasts. I have so many podcasts, and most of them have sporadic episodes just because, one, not very many people are listening. The people that are listening, they get it. So it's like I don't feel like that pressure is there. Pitt's been the one thing that when I don't do Pitt, I feel bad. Like I physically feel bad. And that is why after so long, it was like I had to bring it back. It had to be the old Pitt. It had to be me sitting down talking with people that I know, recording it, putting it out for other people to listen to and hopefully get something out of. And I think we've done that. I think we've done that on this episode. So I'm going to wrap it up there before we jump into the after show. Please, Ronnie, let people know how they can get in touch with you, of course.
Pretty much I'm Ronnie Lutes on Twitter. That's about it.